You are briefing about the agile approach your project is following in the project kickoff meeting. The marketing business head asked how the project will validate scope. Which of the following is true about validating scope in agile? Okay, option A, the agile way of working does not require validating scope. Option B, in agile, team does the scope validation. Okay. C, agile teams use retrospective meeting for validating scope. Option D, agile team use iteration review meeting for validating scope. Pick your choice. You can pause the video. Then I talk about my opinion about this question. Okay, so rather than looking at the option, I directly want to talk about the situation. So you are briefing about the project and the approach your team is going to take, and someone is asking, how are you going to do a validate scope? So situation is like this: someone coming from traditional project management background as a stakeholder, asking you a question in their terminology and expecting you to explain how this thing is getting done in agile way of working. So that's the kind of question this particular question is, or kind of a situation this particular question is putting in front of us. So where do we do validate scope process or a scope validation in case of agile ways of working? So we should be very clear about the difference between verification and validation. Verification is something which can be done by the team. So option B is good if we talk about scope verification. May not hold good when we are talking about scope validation. So the difference here is the team is expected to ensure everything is working as per specification, as per understanding, but is it really meeting the requirement? That is something the business, the end users representative can only do that. So in the Scrum way of working, maybe stakeholder or a product owner are expected to look at the product and see, is it meeting what really intended? Are we really meeting the requirement? That's the whole idea about validation. So the option B is not holding true, and not doing that validation is also not a right thing to do. So option A is also not holding true. You may use different word. Yeah, in agile word, you may use different word, but you do a validation of what you are making against the requirement. Yeah. So the solution validation has to happen. Yeah, you may use some different terminology. So option A is also out. Option B is also out. Now look at option C and D. Now, retrospective meeting is more like audit, reflection, continuous improvement meeting. Yeah, it's not a meeting where you are interacting with stakeholders, business representative, and taking the acceptance or feedback on something which you have made. Yeah. So the idea of validation is you take your product to the business or the end users and take their feedbacks or acceptance on it. Now you can do it incrementally. You not necessarily have to wait for iteration review meeting. At the same time, iteration review meeting also serves that purpose. So out of the available option, we can pick the option D, because in iteration review, you are taking the product to the business stakeholders, demonstrating it, learning about their attitude, their feedback about that particular development. If they like it, they may acknowledge some part of it and accept it for their uses. If they have some feedback, they provide you as an input, which you consider. You add those inputs in your product backlog, you refine them, and as per prioritization, you do it at a later stage. So out of available option, in this particular case, we can pick option D. And I can say relatively, in this particular case, option D is the one which is clearly coming out, because other options are targeting something else rather than validating scope in the agile context.